Welcome to the Secrets of Deception channel. Tom watched John enter the bar and smiled at the sight of his friend. Tom hoped for Hofen to come, even though it was early in the evening and the bar was pretty empty. It had been several weeks since they last met. John had been busy with something going on in his life. He had become unreachable. Tom tried to call and send emails but couldn't get through to his friend, and was really worried. He even tried stopping by John's house and office, but John never seemed to be there. Tom really hoped that John's problems would be solved, but the angry look on John's face told him that was far from the case. Tom stood up to shake hands but was suddenly knocked to the ground by a brutal right cross from John to his jaw. Tom's head bounced off a neighboring table as it fell to the floor. "What the hell," muttered one. Tom spun, spitting out a tooth. John stood over him, ready to punch him again. "Damn bastard. Did you know that you and your wife were laughing at me this whole time because you knew that the couple both got immense pleasure from how dumb it was?" The rapid swelling of his jaw, and the numbness from what was probably a concussion, made it hard for Tom to concentrate. He couldn't understand what his friend was saying, because nothing made sense to him. The only word that escaped Tom's lips was what a flurry of punches followed, and John screamed, "I'm sure it was very funny that you went out with me just so she could have sex. Hey buddy, we're going to my father-in-law's cabin for the weekend. Hey friend, Emily bought us tickets to the concert you wanted to see. It's only 3 hours away, so we have to spend the night, whatever lousy excuse to get me out of the house and area, so she could sleep with that scum. I should have seen it coming, but I never thought you would do this to me. I have no idea what I did to make you hate me so much. You helped her cheat on me. You're not only a lousy person, but also a lousy friend." At that moment, several patrons at the bar had grabbed John, began to pull him back. Tom looked at his friend, stunned by the blows and bewildered by his prayers. The actions and words of his friend barely understood what had happened. The waiter had called the police. As soon as the first blow was struck, and luckily there was a patrol car nearby. The ambulance took much longer to arrive, so as John was being detained and loaded into the patrol car, Tom struggled to stand with the help of some strangers. The paramedics quickly examined Tom and placed him on a stretcher, holding him firmly for transport to the emergency room. Tom lost consciousness before the ambulance pulled out of the parking lot with its siren blaring to Tom. It all felt like a little nightmare. As he slowly opened his eyes and quickly woke up, he realized he was in a hospital. He saw the machines in a typical hospital room with medical equipment and a 20-year-old television. This was not a nightmare. It was real. As he began to regain consciousness, Tom's wife, Emily, walked in with tears streaming down her face. "I'm so sorry, babe. I wanted to be here when you woke up, but I went out to call your parents and tell them you were okay. How are you feeling, Tom?" He lifted slightly in bed and tried to collect his thoughts on what had happened. Emily sat next to him and held his hand to sleep, and the medication had reduced the swelling a little bit, so at least his words were understandable. "I don't know what happened. I had never seen Sai before. He said something about Amanda cheating, and that we were helping her, that we were the reason for that." His words made no sense. Emily's tears kept falling. As Tom continued, "Maybe I heard wrong, but he seemed to think that we made those trips just so Amanda could cheat on him. It's crazy. Why would he think something so crazy?" And Tom stopped for a moment. He looked at Emily, lowering his head. He said she whispered that she was so sorry. "I don't know why are you apologizing. He's the one who hit me, and he had this crazy idea that we were helping her cheat on him. It sounds so stupid. Why would he do that? We thought that we would help her do something so harmful. What kind of horrible people would do that to someone they care about?" Tom looked at Emily. When he raised his head, something was not right about the way he acted. Maybe he was out of his mind, but his behavior was really suspicious. He usually had a lot to say, especially about relationships with close friends. He could be in a state of shock about the situation, as this was not something one could easily imagine just when I was about to ask him what he was doing. The doctor was coming by. He came in and said that Tom's jaw was not broken or dislocated, just bruised, and Tom didn't have a headache. He could go home tonight with Emily. Tom's head hurt, but clearly something was wrong with Emily, so he dutifully lied to the doctor, saying he felt too good to go. Time passed as the nurses worked diligently on paperwork, leaving Tom no chance to question Emily about what was going on. He waited for her to explain everything. Once they got home, they both were silent on the drive home while Emily drove. They didn't even turn on the music. They just stayed silent the whole way. Tom needed answers. But when he got home, he was exhausted and just wanted to sleep after a quick change of clothes. Tom was exhausted, and he fell asleep. Emily snuggled up to him, hugging him tight with all her strength after a shower. Tom went down the stairs and joined Emily in the kitchen. She was still in pain, but at least her head was clearer. Emily was already sitting at the table drinking her coffee. But when Tom joined them, he saw she was deep in thought. Emily finally noticed that Tom was in the room. She asked, "How are you feeling now?" "It's okay, but my head still hurts a little, and it hurts a whole day of rest. I'll be fine. I still can't figure out what made John go so crazy." Taking a sip, Tom continued, "Sens, you said something. Have you talked to her since yesterday to find out what happened to him?" "I talked a little to her yesterday. She was so surprised like I that she could do something to you." So Tom watched his wife as she spoke. It seemed like an answer, measured and careful. But there was something else. She seemed sad, which was unusual, because it was the complete opposite of her typically vibrant personality. She was reserved. She thought maybe she was just shaken by the and it affected her more than she initially thought. Reaching out, he took her hands in his. "It's okay, Carrie, I'm fine. I'm recovering." Her shirt soon became wet from the torrent of her tears. They hugged each other, exchanging the words, "Teo." As they hugged each other tightly, they both called in sick to work and spent the whole day at home. Tom didn't know exactly what it was, but beyond the physical pain, it was worrying him. Nothing in all this. You seemed to make sense of John's sudden attack with the accusation that he and Emily had helped and cheated. Emily had suddenly become shy and reserved her carefully worded answers to basic questions. He wanted to press her again about his phone conversation with Amanda. But Emily was on the verge of tears and thought it was not the right time for an interrogation. Even though they both stayed home, they seemed to be keeping their distance from each other. Tom sat in the backyard, watching the wind sway the trees and the grass. He reflected that he needed to understand why John had attacked him. They had been friends for a long time, and Tom had never seen John lose his temper without a good reason. Tom thought about his wife's words, and couldn't remember her ever saying that John's wife hadn't cheated on him, only that they were sorry for the attack. It was necessary to understand John's perspective on this story, and the best way to learn it was from John himself. Although there was a risk that John could attack him again, it seemed the most direct way to establish a basic understanding of what had happened. Then Tom would sit down with Emily to discuss her role in the incident, and what made John think that Tom had betrayed him. Emily told Tom she would be going to work briefly to pick up her laptop as she would be home for the rest of the week and didn't want to get too far behind schedule after she left. Tom decided to take a chance and visit John on the way to John's house. Tom tried to call him without success. Tom hoped that John was out of jail, so he took a cab to John's house. If Tom was lucky, John would be there so they could figure out what had caused this mess and get back to normal life. When Tom got to John's house, his stomach sank when he saw Emily's car in the driveway instead of ringing the front doorbell. Tom went to the back of the house until he was near an open window by the kitchen. He stopped when he heard Emily talking to Amanda. Emily was no longer silent. She was clearly furious. "John heard me talking about a date and that you would cover for me. He heard a conversation that obviously wasn't meant for him. So how does that explain why he attacked John heard me say that you would cover for me and that Tom and Jen would be busy. So I could have fun me without John suspecting. He must have taken it. As Tom, knowing what was going on, he would have warned you if you had known. But it was only after the attack on Tom that I realized John knew." John was furious. He even used his phone call from jail to tell me how much he hates me, and that he would rather rot in jail than live with me, along with all the other hurtful things he could think of. Emily wanted to sympathize with her friend, but it was Amanda who let Shore, and Emily's stupidity in helping Amanda had already caused serious problems in her own marriage. And things could get worse. Once Tom found out, she knew helping a cheater was wrong. But she and Amanda were close friends, and she hoped Amanda would be satisfied with a brief fling or two, and then turn into a good wife for John again. Instead, Emily's support had led to the worst outcome, and now she had to deal with the consequences for her own marriage, because Amanda couldn't keep her legs together. I know you have your problems, but so do I. Once Tom finds out what happened, my marriage will be in serious trouble. Why would your marriage be in trouble? You didn't cheat. And Tom and Jayan had the chance to have fun. Tom knows you never cheated on him. If need be, I'll tell him you never did. Of course, Tom couldn't see it. But from Emily's tone, he understood that she had closed her eyes and rubbed her forehead as she spoke. You really don't understand. I lied to him. I helped you cheat on his best friend because of me. His best friend attacked him. Really, do you think he'll believe a single word I say? And as for your help, you're the only person who... They will hate this situation. You think he will listen to something you say and believe in such a liar. But you did nothing wrong. You did not cheat. He should know that it doesn't matter. I have no idea how to fix it, his toy, if I don't have a solution. By the time Tom finds out, my marriage will probably end up like yours. I can't believe how foolish I was to help you. I will never speak to you again, but he has always been a loving wife. He knows how much you love him. Yes, of course, I am such a loving wife that my support, my promiscuous friend, got to the point where my husband made a fool of himself, kicked by his best friend. You really don't understand how foolish you are. You think he will trust me now? At best, it will take years for him to trust me again. Palm. He had heard enough and walked quietly outside. His firm character allowed him to remain calm and focus on the task at hand. As you waited for a cab, you realized that you needed to start sorting things out. But first, you had to make sure you had all the facts. It was time to visit a friend to tell him that the sergeant on duty and the detectives were baffled would be an understatement. But after many years of dealing with strange incidents in police work, they simply shrugged when Tom said that he wanted to bail. They smiled at John's expression when he saw that Tom had bailed him out, and laughed openly when Tom told John to be quiet until he was told to speak. A bewildered John followed Tom and got into the car silently after Tom gave the driver the address. They sat in silence until they arrived at the crime scene. The same waiter was on duty, looking nervous and clearly apprehensive about any trouble, but Tom quickly reassured him by asking for a bottle of Glimmer and Signet 2 glasses and privacy as they moved to a corner. Tom poured a generous amount into both glasses and slid one drank and exchanged that Tejo. Dan as a toast to him. First sip, he looked at his friend. I didn't know about this setup, I just wanted to hang out and have a good time with you, but they used our friendship against you. They knew you would never agree to this, so they launched their plan of without me. Joe looked intensely at his friend. They had known each other for so long. He could always tell when Totem was talking nonsense by the expression on Tom's face. It was clear he was being honest as the initial anger subsided and calmed down in jail. Could think rationally. Or at least rationally about what Tom had told him. She ripped my heart out and your lying wife helped her give everything she had to our marriage, and it was a waste of time because she chose to go after another guy, refilled her drinks, and just listened to her friend, as he expressed his frustration and anger about their marriage. When the whiskey and conversation finally calmed down, she was able to apologize for the attack. I probably should have talked to you first, but I couldn't help it. The news that my marriage and our friendship were over made me lose control as much as it killed me that she was a cheater. The thought of her stabbing me in the back was even worse. Cheating is bad enough, but the thought of you laughing at me hurt even more. I'm so sorry, Tom smiled, sipping his scotch. Okay, I probably deserved it for sleeping with your sister over Christmas break that time. How did you find out I was cheating on you? John shook his head. It's really stupid. A few weeks ago, I thought something was wrong in my marriage, so I started to distance myself. Eventually, I concluded I must be cheating and I was getting ready to hire a private detective, but while I was at work, my phone started showing video and audio from the Ring camera on the front porch. The motion detector went off when Amanda picked up an Amazon and was on the phone. Setting up a meeting to sleep with a guy, said that you and Emily could help her as before. It didn't seem like you didn't know. It sounded like you were actively involved in cheating. Tom looked at him, not believing what he was hearing. 2 marriages destroyed because a woman couldn't keep her legs closed and forgot about the camera. So that means Emily was cheating too. I hadn't thought about it, but it makes sense that she could do the same thing. She was covering up for my wife. In fact, I'm almost convinced that Emily wasn't cheating. I heard them talking before she answered, and she convinced me she wasn't joking. So if she wasn't cheating, why do you want to divorce her? It might be easier to forgive her if she had slept with someone else. What happened is even worse to me. The problem isn't the cheating. It's the trust. Not only repeatedly lied to me about your actions and your wife, but also used our friendship to cover it up in the most malicious way, making me an active participant in the deception. How can I stay in a marriage with her if I can trust her anymore and my best friend hates her? Trust can be rebuilt. I don't trust my wife at all. But Emily loves you. Are you sure this is the end? I think. Yes. Trust that is mended with time is not stronger. It is weaker. People can forgive, but they never forget. I am not going to spend the rest of my life hoping that in a few years it will be just a fading memory. She knew what she was doing, and there is nothing I can say to fix this. It's time for me to leave and start over. Renan envied her friend. Despite all this, you will have a peaceful divorce, and both will remain in good terms. In the meantime, I will try to find out which Mexican brothel rents mistresses, so can find Amanda a job suitable for her skills and pay less alimony. I admire your ability to see life as it is. You define your path and just live your life. Tom laughed. It seemed like his world was ending, but he knew in the long run it would be okay. He went home and talked to Emily. Since she already knew what was going to happen, she would probably be relatively conflict-free. She cried and begged for counseling, but understood that he couldn't accept her behavior. It wasn't in his nature, and she knew it was time for him to choose a new direction and look at his life with new eyes, because the chapter of his marriage with Emily was over. Thanks for listening until the end. See you in the next episode of Cheating Secrets. Take care of yourself and your loved ones. Goodbye.